my mom wouldn't let me go because it was the first movie that ever had a rating on it. Did you know that? First movie that ever, it was like for mature audiences. They didn't have the PG ratings or anything. It was, but I'm thinking, wow, it was nothing compared to the movies that they have today, you know. But you know, and the idea is that, you know, the young man was a womanizer, right? And so he's looking at his life. If you don't know what it's about, he's you know, kind of been using all these women, and you know, he's kind of a self-serving kind of guy. And then at the end, he goes through some events and some challenges with his life, and then he asks the question at the end. It's kind of a, I looked on the internet, I remember the ending, it was pretty good. They had a kind of a remake of it, but the one I saw was with Michael Caine. And at the very end, you know, he's going, what's it about, you know? What is this world really about, you know? I don't get what life is. And I'm thinking, you know, it's the same question that all of us at some time or another ask, and in different ways, at different times. We ask, who am I? You know, why am I here? Who am I? Why am I here? What's it all about, you know? And how shall I live? How shall I live? And I think that our answers, I know in my life, my answers, the responses that I would give would be different than they would be now. And maybe they'll be different 10 years from now, who knows? You know, they change as we evolve, right? And I know that the answers that I had before now were based on fear. See, I think, and I would ask the answers, I would respond in love now. I would say that's who I am. So I started to think about that a little bit, and I would say that we're talking about religion, and we're talking about, you know, the borders that there are in religion, and there are some borders and some without borders. And what I would say is that who was I as a young, really young girl and young woman? I would have said I was a sinner, because that's what I was told, right? Who am I? You know, and I don't know if some of you grew up that way, but that would have been it. Why am I here? Why? What's the purpose? Why are we here? At that point, it was to accept Jesus Christ. I had to do that. That was it. And make sure that others do, right? Make sure that, you know, everybody went to heaven, didn't burn. You know, what's it all about? Making sure I get to heaven. Making sure I get to heaven and I don't burn in hell. And how shall I live? And the answer was, in that time, in fear. In total fear, you know, that it was gonna, you know, that's the way it is. So those were the responses, and they were based on fear. And as perspective, my perspective broadened a little bit, and I awakened a little bit more, I see that my answers now are based in love. You know, I see myself differently than a sinner. You know, I see myself as really part of this loving universe, a part of everything that exists. I see that I'm here to, the reason I believe that I'm here is to realize that, to realize who I am in my heart, to know that love is within me and with everyone else, and then to see it in everybody else. You know, that's, I think, the reason I'm here. And what's it all about? Wow, to know, and in my heart, not just in my head, because it's both, right? I learn it here. Our minds are important. But to drop to the heart and then live in my heart in this field of loving energy of who I am. And how do I live? You know, how do I want to live, I guess? You know, and I'm on the journey just like all of us. And it's right up there. And that's, I think, when Judy and I decided that, and this would be our mission at Common Ground, it's to embrace our humanity and that of everybody else, you know, to understand myself, love myself, all the mistakes I make, and embrace that and love myself anyway. And the same thing with seeing it in others, seeing, you know, the love in everybody else, and embrace them as human beings. And then knowing that as we do that, we start to express this divine that we are. And that for me are some of the answers to the questions. Whether they'll look exactly the same way as my mind starts to open up a little bit more, who knows? But what I know is right now, this is how I want to live, is to embrace myself and others and to express that divine self. So I said to myself, how does that look? You know, it's easy to say, oh, I embrace humanity. I want to embrace humanity. What does that look like? So that's kind of where I want to focus some of the things I talk about today, is what does it look like to embrace humanity? And I was thinking, I kind of went into some contemplation yesterday, and for me, there's 4 things that are important, very important in life, and it's basically what I've gone through in life, and I know many of you have, is to embrace our difficulties. Number 1, embrace the difficulties that you go through. Everything that you have gone through in life is important. Number 2, to let your heart be broken. See, Let your heart be broken. Don't try to keep it from being broken, you know, because you need to be vulnerable. Hold no resentments. No resentments ever. It hurts. I'm talking about forgiveness here. And be in the present moment. Be in the present moment. Those are the 4 things. And when we do that, I think we can live a grateful, a joyful, and a kind life. See, that's the divinity part. So as we work on those 4 things, and that's the journey, you know, of letting go of the stuff in our life so that we can express who we really are. So embrace your difficulties. I'll kind of start there. And sometimes life sucks. You just have to say it, okay? Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes life hurts. It's not all perfect. And I think that if we try to pretend, you know, that it doesn't, it hurts us. I think we need to be able to open it and say that life hurts sometimes. And yet we can get through it. That the reason for the hurt, there's so much answers that we don't know. We don't know the answers to why things happen. Why do we get hurt so much? But we know that they're teachers for us. We know that we learn. We learn so much and we become stronger and we become better because of the pain that we go through in life. And I've seen it happen so much in the people here. I've seen it in my own life. The struggles have made people better people. They have made them stronger, more loving, more accepting, more compassionate. So to reject and to resist the things you go through in life is only, you know, to make it worse. You know, you're adding negative energy upon what's going on anyway. So to open up and accept is huge in our lives. You know, I sometimes think that we think we're entitled. Right? Do you think this too? That we're entitled to this perfect life, that there should be no problems, right? There should be no difficulty and struggle. And that we get deeply offended if something goes wrong in our life, if somebody cuts us off, right, out on the freeway. We're deeply offended. You know, if somebody says something to us, we're deeply offended. Everything should go perfect in our life. And I think once that we step back and we realize and get a bigger perspective of who we really are, that we just see that that's life, that's people and personalities that come together. You know, nobody hurts anybody usually on purpose, and sometimes it hurts, and sometimes we just get over it. And that's what opening up and widening our perspective is about, you know? And it's to feel the pain of life and not trying to stuff it, but not hanging out there either. See, there's this tricky balance between, you know, feeling the things that you go through in life, you know, and then camping out there, you know, and letting that run your life. So there is this balance of being able to accept life on life's terms, being able to feel it, and then being able to move on and learn from it. And that's the balance of it. It's embracing our suffering without becoming apathetic to it. So how do we do that, you know? And the truth is we got to eliminate our self-pity. It's not fair. You ever hear yourself saying it's not fair? Why me? You know, when things don't go our way. And those reactions often reflect this attitude of entitlement, of, yeah, you know, this is the way it should be. And I think that it's ours to cultivate the patience then, to be able to allow the circumstances in our life sometimes to unfold before we start to make judgments. Have you made judgments when something's come to you without letting everything unfold first? And I think we're called to do that, because I know that time, boy, if you let things, if you take a breath, just a breath, things change without jumping in and trying to change it yourself. And we manage our fear. Boy, I'll tell you, I've learned so much that our fear is what holds us back. I remember laying in bed at night with my heart pounding when things were going on, and I didn't know how to handle it. Now with just knowing how to breathe, just how to breathe is so huge in my life. By taking in the breath and bringing it through all the way, deep, deep breaths, it regulates my breathing. There's so much that we can do to regulate our fear. Number 2, let your heart be broken. See, I think sometimes we're afraid. We're afraid to love because it hurts. Love hurts. And it makes sense because, you know, anything that you love, you know, you lose, right? In this life, you know, you through either death or divorce or, you know, it's just the natural cycles of life. It leaves. And I think that so many of us are afraid to love. And yet, I look at my life and I think, wow, you know, if I wouldn't have opened to the pain of the life, I would have never experienced the joy that I did. Because with every pain, there's this incredible joy. I always said with my marriage that, you know, it was crazy marriage, right? And the ride was worth the fall. There's a Whitney Houston song that says, the ride with you was worth the fall, you know? And I'm thinking, you know, that's so true. And I think you can say that with your lives, you know, with kids, everything. You know, there's highs and lows, but you've got to embrace it. You need to embrace it all in love with all of your heart and be able, I think we did a talk, a whole series on being vulnerable. And that's huge in our life, is to open up and just be vulnerable to what comes in your life. Let love in is what my advice would be, you know, in this whole idea of embracing our humanity. Just let love in, no matter what. And then hold no resentments. That's a big one. You know, we all hold these resentments. You know, no matter if somebody says something to you, it's old resentments, you know, and they hurt. They hurt us. If you have anybody now, you know, that you can't forgive, forgive them. Forgive them. You know, it's funny, I talk to my brother, I talk about him a lot because he's such a teacher for me. And I talked to him the other day and he said that he had this friend that they haven't talked for like 3 years. And they got into some kind of argument. His birthday was on Valentine's Day. He said he took a cake and he knocked on the door. Hadn't seen him for 3 years. The guy opened the door. And he's a grown man, you know, I mean, and he just broke down crying, hugged him, and then they cried together. And he said it made so much difference in the world, you know, and his friend's back, you know, all it took. They didn't even know what they were fighting about. They didn't even remember what the fight was about. But it was like, then they had this energy of not being able to see each other anymore. Because, you know, what do you do? But when he went there, he said that it just made all the difference. And now they're back being friends again. And I'm thinking in our lives how important it is, you know, to look at the people in our lives that we hold these resentments for, or we can't forgive, and to be able to open our hearts and forgive and let go of any resentment. You know, the truth is that it's all energy and it gets stuck. And when you have these resentments and this energy inside of you, wow, that means that you don't have this creative ability to use somewhere else, right? Because it's stuck in your holding of your resentments. So forgiveness is just key. And then to dwell in the present moment. Wow, see, the present moment is where God is. God's not in the future and in the past. God is right here, right now. And God is intelligence. So all of our creativity, all of our intelligence, the beauty, all comes in the present moment. So each moment is significant and loving when we go there. And again, it's through the breath and through nature, you know, that we become and we get present. So we have to practice mindfulness, use meditation to practice, bring our awareness to everyday tasks that we're doing, right? Be present with everything that you're doing. And the way I do it, man, I'll tell you, is it's got to be nature. And I know most of you, I've heard so many of you say that when you garden, you know, or when you're with your animals, or when you're out there with the birds, that's where you become present. And that's how we embrace our humanity, is to be able to, you know, let go of all the stuff in our head and to be able to become present to what is. See, this whole idea of embracing who we are is about a journey of letting go of all of the blocks in our life, all the stuff that we go through. And it is a journey. You know, this whole spiritual journey that we're on is letting go of this stuff that we learned all through life. It's a letting go. And when we let go, we leave this space for God. We leave the space for this divine intelligence to do its work. And that's the journey, you know. We'll always have questions. I mean, we're going to have questions about life. And we'll answer them at different levels, you know, wherever we are on our awakening. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we just have to remember that this is a journey and it's all a process. And that when we can come together in groups, when we get to be connected with people that feel like us, that are like-minded, our journey becomes easier, our journey becomes better. That's what it's about for me. So my prayer for all of us is that we embrace who we are, and that way we'll start to express this huge divinity that we are. Thank you.